And now, here's Casey Ingram.
Welcome back to the second half hour. First of all, I misspoke. The first half hour, I'm going to have Eric Miller in next week, not Michael Circus. And as we do an election wrap up, again, that'll be Eric Miller. And that's going to be very exciting. I also want to thank my sponsors, Indiantown Marina and Indiantown Marine Center. Again, if this is the middle of hurricane season, if you need any work done on your boat, you need to have safe harborage for hurricanes, give either of those good folks a call. They can certainly help you out. Highly, highly recommend them. I can't think of a safer place because they are inland on the Okeechobee Waterway. And we just heard from Susie Nash. Oh my goodness, she'll be coming back into town, and we're going to be able to hear her live up at Archie's in Fort Pierce very soon. So fantastic. And I'll tell you what, she is taking off on Spotify. So look her up on Spotify. And before I get into my next guest, I want to let everybody know I'll be putting out another YouTube video later this week about a couple issues that are extremely important here in Martin County. I can't think of two issues that are more important right now that we are through our primary. The first one is the cost of the Brightline station, folks. This was promised to be about $3 to $5 million for Martin County, $3 to $6 million with a parking garage for the city of Stuart. This thing has turned into numbers that could look like $70 to $90 million. I'll go over that in the YouTube video, but folks, Martin County Commission will be voting on the Brightline garage on Tuesday. Now is the time to speak up if you think that's a little bit of exorbitant cost, because I certainly do for the Brightline station. And secondly, there's going to be a public workshop to consider a proposed amendment at Jonathan Dickinson State Park to put in a golf course. Yes, a golf course at Jonathan Dickinson State Park. I can't even fathom it, but they are proposing that. You need to head over to the Flagler Center in Stuart at 3 o'clock Tuesday, August 27th. So both of those items are on August 27th. The first one's at the Martin County Commission at 11 a.m. The public workshop for the golf course that is literally being proposed for Jonathan Dickinson will be 3 to 4 p.m. So up next, very patiently, I appreciate Doug Kelly. He is with the CEO of American Edge Project. Doug's lived experience drew him to American Edge's mission. Raised in a small Michigan town that lost 43% of its manufacturing jobs over 2 decades, he saw firsthand the painful consequences of what happens when policymakers don't vigorously protect what gives our country and our communities a competitive edge. Concerned that lawmakers were making the same mistake with the U.S. technology industry, Doug joined AEP as CEO in September 2021 to spearhead AEP's effort to protect America's technology innovation edge. An accomplished, value-driven executive, Doug has spent his entire career as a relentless force for good in transforming lives at the national, state, and local levels. He brings to AEP a deep background in politics, advocacy, technology, and organization building. For 20 years, he served in senior leadership roles in the political sector, deeply engaged in presidential, gubernatorial, and other statewide campaigns. Over his career, Doug has successfully led 3 separate large-scale transformation efforts in technology, organization building, and fundraising. He also served as president and CEO of Make-A-Wish, Ohio, Kentucky, and Indiana, the largest chapter of Make-A-Wish in the country, and also founded a strategic consulting firm, Big Change Strategies, which coached executives to higher performance and developed growth and impact strategies for advocacy and nonprofit organizations. Doug is joining us now from Columbus, Ohio. Thank you and welcome to the show, Doug. Hold on, Doug. We're having a volume issue, so I'm going to, while Evan's fixing that, I'm also going to let folks know the American Edge Project is a coalition dedicated to the proposition that American innovators are an essential part of U.S. economic health, national security, and individual freedoms. The coalition and its members will tell the story about the positive impact technology and innovation have on America's economy and businesses, particularly small ones, and how they enhance freedom of expression and our nation's overall security. All right, Doug, here's our second welcome. How are you doing today?
Hey, thanks. Thanks for having me, Casey.
Loud and clear this time. It's my pleasure. This artificial intelligence is a huge impact, and I'm very excited to hear from you and have you on the show because folks are a little afraid of it, but your organization's saying, wait a minute, don't be afraid of it. This is a very competitive edge that we need to consider what regulations that may be proposed on it could affect American businesses.
Yeah, this is an incredibly exciting time for our country. Look, I'm old enough to have lived through the space race, right? And the United States was going against a then authoritarian power, the Soviet Union. and technology was a critical part of that battle. In fact, the space race was. And the Soviets got the jump by putting a person first in space and launching the Sputnik satellite. And so President Kennedy called the country together to say, look, we need a shared national mission to accelerate innovation, and we're going to go to the moon and back by the end of the decade. Well, our success there transformed America for the next 5 decades, gave us the world leadership role. Now, 50 years later, right, we are facing another authoritarian power in China, whose goal is to become the #1 superpower in the world. And again, technology is our secret sauce and our advantage that we can use to beat them. And artificial intelligence is an essential part of that technological edge. So we want to make sure we're doing everything we can to accelerate the development of artificial intelligence, to make sure that people feel comfortable with it and to understand its importance and help them understand how it can help small business thrive and grow.
You talked about a couple things there. One of the issues, of course, is China. And, China is one of those countries, they really have stolen a lot of our technology. So do you feel that they're also stealing the AI technology through our corporations and channels that probably most people are not aware how it all ends up there, but some of it's through corporations or political dealings, taking that AI technology and then advancing it where here in the United States, you feel that we may be handcuffing ourselves through proposed regulations?
Yeah, look, China thinks in very long-term increments, right? Where
They
we
do.
think more in 4-year presidential cycles, right? But basically, China's developed and executed a plan for the last 20 years. It's 3 parts to become global technology leader. The first is invest more than $1 trillion in building its own technological capabilities. So that's microchips, that's artificial intelligence, that's quantum computing, all of these kind of technologies of the future. So they're investing as much as they possibly can in developing their own capacities. The second part of their plan is to steal whatever they can't build, right? And so each year America loses about 500 billion with a B, dollars in intellectual property, trade secrets, technology. And the third part of China's plan is they want to make the world increasingly dependent on their technology because it gives them political and economic leverage. And so from our point of view, we need to do everything that we can to, first of all, check China's global ambitions, and at the same time, accelerate our ability to innovate so that we just keep increasing our lead over China when it comes to new technologies that are used to strengthen our economy, to advance our values, and to make us militarily superior to China.
Again, we're speaking with Doug Kelly of the American Edge Project. You certainly can, I recommend you Googling American Edge Project. You can get a website and get a lot of information about this organization. Tell us a little bit about AI. What concerns are you hearing from Americans that are saying, it's out there, Doug, it's going to take our jobs?
Yeah, it's going to take some jobs, but it's also going to create many, many more additional jobs, right? So if you think about it, kind of the start of the digital age back in the late 80s and early 90s, right? There was concerns that it was going to take jobs, it was going to replace people's livelihoods. But what happened is it created dozens and dozens of new categories of jobs. Now, similarly on the AI side, right, it's going to create a whole new set of jobs for white collar professionals, but also blue collar professionals as well, because the data centers that are needed to run these artificial intelligence systems, they're great jobs for plumbers, pipe fitters, construction workers, electricians. And so the more that we invest in our capabilities to build the data centers, to advance AI, and to make sure that we're reskilling and upskilling our current workforce, we're going to be much better off if we do that. And it doesn't matter who wins the election, Casey. Whichever party wins the election, they have to commit to accelerating American innovation and checking China's global ambition. Like, that's the bottom line. So if we don't do that, we're going to find ourselves in the exact spot that we found ourselves once China began to take our manufacturing jobs. And we can't surrender our technological edge like we did with manufacturing.
What do you feel is the political appetite right now in the political parties? Either are the party right now to support the initiative to make sure America can compete on level footing with AI?
I think it's pretty good on both sides. They recognize the threat of China. 3 years ago when we started our advertising and talked about the threat of China's technological strength and they're wanting to take our technological edge, it was a little bit controversial because people weren't necessarily talking about that a lot. But fast forward 3 years, right? You had a special select China committee who's raised a lot of the same issues that American Edge has raised. And at the same time, there's kind of a bipartisan consensus that China remains a significant challenge to this country, far more than Russia ever has posed in the past. Now, at the same time, you still have different factions within, like the Federal Trade Commission, the Department of Justice, who are very intent on driving an ideologically driven agenda to go after quote unquote big tech. But the problem is when you go after the larger innovators in America, you end up hurting the small business person, you hurt small business innovators, and you overall hurt the innovation ecosystem that has separated this country from the rest of the countries around the globe.
What proposals have you seen brought forward that you feel are a threat? That they may be trying to attack big business, but are a threat to the smaller businesses you just spoke of?
Yeah, so a couple of them. One, if you remember a couple of years ago, they were trying to pass antitrust revisions that would have fundamentally changed how tech companies can operate, whether they can merge and acquire different organizations, whether they can enter into certain business spaces and make it more competitive. So that was number one. The second is the Federal Trade Commission is opposing a lot of different types of mergers that would increase competitiveness. And that's a mistake overall. And the third part is even our allies in Europe, their kind of mantra is let's regulate first and innovate second. And that's one of the reasons why, of the top 20 tech companies in the world, there's only one European country there. The rest are mostly American, and then the rest are China, because Europe doesn't innovate. But instead, what Europe's goal has been is to kind of start sticking it to American tech companies and restricting their ability to do business in Europe. Unfortunately, that's just going to help hand China an advantage in getting deeper penetration in that European market. And as a result, it's going to make Europe more dependent on Chinese technology, which is the third part of China's plan.
And I'll let you talk a little bit more because I think it's really important for listeners to understand. You talked about China's long-term plan. When we're talking long-term, folks, we're not talking 5 or 10 years. This is a generational thing with China. They will wait 50 years if they have to. It is very long-term.
You nailed that right on the head. A friend of mine, he deals with a lot of national security issues, and he's like, I was having a dinner one time with these Chinese officials, and they were laughing, saying, "Oh, that was a good millennium. Oh, that one was a bad millennium, and that was a good millennium." And they have hundreds of years time span in terms of when they think about how do we go about accumulating power and advancing our vision for what the world should be. They're very patient on it. They're very planful. And again, our challenge is not with the Chinese people. Our challenge is with the Communist Chinese Party leadership, who is using technology in that country to suppress people, to control people, to survey people. And you look at kind of the flip side of that is what America does with technology, which is we use it for advancing democracy, advancing expression, advancing opportunity for people. And so at the end of the day, it matters which country and which set of values builds the future. We can let China build it, and we'll have a much less free future, or America and our technology industry can build that future, and we'll have a much more positive future overall.
You talked about some bills in the past that were concerning to you. What do you see coming up that may be presented? There's always bills in the pipeline or things that they may bring back. So what should folks be aware of on a federal level, and then we'll turn to state, to be watchful? You can reach out to our senators and our representatives to say we do or don't support a bill.
Well, you have a very active audience, so I'll encourage them to pick up the phone and call their senators in the Capitol and say, look, the most important thing that you can do for our country right now is to make sure that you're prioritizing accelerating technology innovation and not doing things that restrict it or handcuff it. So as they talk about, okay, what are we going to do about artificial intelligence? Well, artificial intelligence has just been born, right? We don't even know what its full capabilities are and what it can be. So any kind of guardrails that they put on it can't be narrow. They have to be really wide because our innovators are the best in the world. We don't know the many different changes this is going to bring to different industries, but it's going to make them better, stronger, and faster, and help us compete against countries like China. And so we need to make sure we're stepping on the gas when it comes to innovation. And just to give you one stat here, Casey, there's 763 bills to regulate artificial intelligence at the federal and state level.
Wow.
That's a nightmare, right? And so whichever ones pass, the dozens and dozens are going to pass. Our technology industry, big players and small players, are going to have to navigate that thicket of regulations. And in the meantime, China's going to move forward unrestrained in what they're trying to do with AI.
There's a couple issues here. I see, first of all, with these bills, so many times, especially at the federal level, they'll get packed into a larger bill, and it's really not the main issue. So you have to watch those. And secondly, I imagine you're dealing with just the fear of the unknown. When people have the fear of the unknown, it's hard for them to support something just because of that innate fear.
Yeah, that's such a great point. There was a recent poll that was done of a bunch of different countries around the world of how excited are you to begin adopting and using AI tools. China population was at 90% excitement, whereas America was barely at 35%. And so I would encourage your audience, okay, you're going to hear a lot of stuff about AI, but go check it out on your own, right? You can use Google's Gemini, an AI tool, for totally free, right? You can create an account on ChatGPT. You can use Meta's artificial intelligence tool on WhatsApp or on your Instagram, and just ask it a series of questions, right? Help me write a letter to the editor. Help me find a recipe for banana bread, or help me better understand the concepts behind geometry because my son is struggling with this in his 11th grade class. You're going to be stunned at like what it brings back. And what you're going to realize is that you have the power of the internet right here on your phone. So you have like a really smart friend who knows everything about everything, but is not a jerk to you, right? And will answer whatever questions you want in 5 seconds or less. So I would just ask people to try and get that aha moment with using AI. And once you do that, you're going to begin thinking, holy cow, I can use this to organize different events, to help me grow my small business, to help me write marketing newsletters for the different things that I hate doing right now, the tasks that I don't like to do. You can task it to these artificial intelligence tools, and it'll do it probably 80 to 90% as well as you can, but in 5 seconds time.
Right.
And at the end of the day, if you're a small business person, the least amount of thing you have is time.
Well, speaking of which, I remember that there was, and I don't know how the case turned out, but there was a case that was tried with an AI lawyer. I heard it earlier this year. It was like a first ever thing. I don't know how it turned out, but if you think about it, they have their legal assistants. The AI can research what may take weeks for a legal assistant. It can do it in a matter of, you said, seconds and minutes.
Yeah, and it's funny because it might have been that case, but a different one. The lawyer submitted a brief that was just written by AI, right? You can't do that, right? It'll still make mistakes. It's not a foolproof thing. But, as you do an internet search, right, you still have to comb through a bunch of different stuff. Artificial intelligence can help kind of condense that all down. And so it helps you move faster, quicker, and more efficiently so that you have more time to do other things that add a lot of value.
How about for my listeners here in Florida? What do we need to be looking out for that could be going through our next session in 2025?
Yeah. So you want to avoid bills that are really restrictive on the development and use of artificial intelligence. You also want to avoid bills like Florida, I think, has done a good job overall of doing things to help accelerate local innovation in the tech sectors there. You have a number of different tech hubs. You got Orlando, you got Miami, even St. Pete. Like you guys are doing a pretty good job down there. And so it needs long-sighted leaders who say, look, Florida has great universities. It's got a robust, diverse population. It has a lot of investment to capital that can come here, and it's a great place to live. So how do we take all of that and help accelerate the creation of an ecosystem that marries new ideas with talent and capital and then spins them out to market? Because that creates local jobs, it creates local revenue, it creates local opportunities, and it builds buzz and makes communities more attractive to people around the country who are like, first of all, I hate living in North Dakota because it's cold all the time, and I want to move somewhere where it's really hopping in tech and has great weather. Bam, you're going to have a lot of migration from people there. So you want to be able to attract the very best talent from the globe. And if you do it around the tech industry in Florida, man, that is something that people will get excited about and come to.
So, Doug, I'm completely on board with don't restrict our competitive edge here or our businesses for American businesses. But then I also think of locally, and you may have seen it up in Ohio. We've had a story recently through the sheriff's department where they were changing the head on a young girl's body. It was pornographic. It wasn't the girl. And we've heard about these things. And so that's what makes it tough for people to say, okay, we can't just unleash AI because look what's happening. I mean, there's some devastating effects to it. So how do you balance this?
Yeah, you're always going to have bad actors in whatever technology it is, right? I mean, they had that same type of stuff with um, even before AI and before a lot of modern technology. But there can be reasonable things that are done about that, and that should not be acceptable in anybody's book. And I'm not a programmer, right? But I think there's probably ways that they can um, deal with that. And so you have to be able to address the things that are actual problems without kind of taking the whole piece of value and restricting what it potentially can be. So these are tough questions, but you know where they're not having any debates like this? They're not having any debates like this in China.
Right, right, and that's what we
Um,
have to keep in mind. They're unrestricted because the Chinese Communist Party is they're unfettered. They're
and they have a chatbot that the only way it can be used if it reflects and spouts out the official party line, right?
mm,
It's President Xi Jinping's chatbot, right? That's the official one. And so if it contradicts what he says, it's not going to be putting it out. You can ask in China on the chatbot there, tell us about the Tiananmen Square massacre, and it will be like there was no massacre.
oh wow.
You put that in a search into here, you're going to get a million articles about what the Communist Party government did.
What do you think about TikTok?
Uh, China has a number of different ways that they're trying to get into this country, right? And so whether it's spy balloons or other things like that, like that's what they do, right? They want to know as much as they can about us because it helps inform how they make decisions. So, look, that's just one piece of the puzzle there.
Again, this is Doug Kelly with the CEO of the American Edge Project. Doug, you recently wrote about a 19-page study that you published, and I wondered if you could tell us a little bit about that. It's Unleashing American Innovation, a Policy Roadmap to Win the Global Tech Race.
hmm Yeah, so we create a series of policy papers on the importance of technology to national security, the importance of technology to our values, and this is our latest version about here's how technology can help accelerate America's economic growth, and it's built around several pillars, right? The first is we have to be able to accelerate our own innovation here in this country, both at the federal level and the local level. So we give a series of policy prescriptions for that involve helping it easier to raise more capital, investing more in research and development, getting rid of regulations that are slowing different businesses down who are in the technology sector. Um, and then we also talk about the importance of checking China's global ambitions when it comes to technology because we're not operating in a vacuum, Casey. I mean, I think you probably address this a lot on your show because we can't look at ourselves as this insular country. China is competing very aggressively for the hearts and minds of different countries around the globe. And we have to be able to win those countries to our side and use our technology because if they get addicted to China's technology, that means they're going to lose all their data and secrets in China. And the third part is we talk about the importance of not kind of shooting ourselves in the foot when it comes to excessive regulation. And that is, I think, one thing that has been the secret sauce of our country. We try and take an approach where we accelerate innovation in a way that doesn't restrain our innovators in unreasonable ways like Europe does. And so if we can avoid those, if we can accelerate innovation, check China, and avoid self-inflicted wounds, we will win this tech race against China. And that leader is going to be decided in the next decade.
Folks, this is a Incredibly important. And I'm just going to remind everybody we're very close to the nation of Bahamas, 60 miles off of our coast, and you would not believe how infiltrated that is with the country of China. A matter of fact, a lot of the Bahamians even get educated by China. There's some agreements there for educational purposes. So this is close to our border. Not that the Bahamians, I'm worried about the Bahamians in particular, but I'm letting folks know how the Chinese, and particularly the Chinese Communist Party, is infiltrating very close to our border. And it's incredibly important that we're aware of how much that they are trying to infiltrate through areas that are close to our border. Doug, again, CEO of the American Edge Project, we have just a couple minutes left. Who else is involved with the American Edge Project? And, you obviously brought this together to make sure to protect the American commerce, American businesses. But moving forward, are you going to be introducing bills or anything like that we should be aware of?
So moving forward, we're going to be talking a lot more about artificial intelligence because we want to make sure we're educating the public about what it is and what it isn't, right? There's a lot of kind of scary killer robot scenarios out there that the media talks about, and that's not the reality of what artificial intelligence is. Like, we've actually been using artificial intelligence for decades now. And so people that are also involved in the organization are bipartisan members of past members of Congress, senators, congressmen, former military leaders, former intelligence officials, former governors, all of whom recognize the power and importance of technology when it comes to making sure that America is number one in every single category, but especially innovation. Because at the end of the day, innovation is what drives our country's success. That's what we're built on. And so if we unleash our ability to innovate in this country, there's no stopping us. There's no stopping what technology can bring for all the people of this country, not just a select few, but for every single citizen of this country.
Amen to that. Amen to that. We have just a minute left. Again, I just want to let folks know, Google American Edge Project. Your website, do you know what it is offhand, Doug?
Yep. AmericanEdgeProject.org.
Easy enough, folks. Thank you so much today, Doug Kelly. This was very informative. I appreciate you helping to educate our listeners. This is what it's about, and we hope to have you on again in the future, especially anything that's coming up we need to be aware of.
Hey, thanks so much, Casey. Have a great day.
You too. Take care. Next week, I'm going to have Eric Miller in the studio. We are going to do that election wrap-up, and that's just for you, Tamara Shenanigans. We are going to have a lot of fun and really dig into these races because it was a big upset last night here in Martin County. So, folks, take care. It's been great. To the 27% of you that came out and voted, thank you so much. You made a difference, and we're going to talk about that next week. In the meantime, tune into my YouTube page, and I'll be following up on the parks in JD or Jonathan Dickinson Park and the Brightline Station in Stewart. Take care.